all things considered, at 7. It's 27 degrees right now. Temperatures in the mid-teens overnight tonight. WNYC at 6:30.
Support for WNYC comes from Culture of Bathing, Sauna Meets Culture Festival in Williamsburg's Domino Park, February 12th through March 1st. Tickets at cultureof-ing.com.
If you believe democracy requires a free press, your station is WNYC, 93.9 FM and AM 820, NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Ninja One, unifying IT operations for businesses globally with solutions to support IT resilience and operational efficiency. Unify IT, simplify work. Ninja One.
Feels like it's been a while, so I'm going to say it out loud again, just so as we all remember. Stocks go down too, gang. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Barron's Investor Circle, a new product offering investors stock picks, market insights, and access to the Barron's editors behind over a century of financial reporting. Learn more at barrons.com/investor circle. And by Progressive. Building a career is possible at Progressive Insurance, now offering virtual and hybrid employment opportunities with pathways for advancement. Learn more about available positions at careers.progressive.com. And by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. Designed to stop phishing, it protects the accounts people rely on. YubiKey, powerful protection, instant access. More at yubico.com.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Ryssdal. It is Thursday today. This is the 5th of February. Good as always to have you along, everybody. The standard caveat applies here. Stock market, economy, not. But stock market vibes, economy-ish. The major indices today, as you have perhaps seen or already heard, not good in a kind of substantive way. People are a bit wigged out over the big software companies and what AI might do to them. Google, as we mentioned yesterday, is going to spend $175 to $185 billion on AI this year. There is some agita out there about that. And then there's the labor market, of which we have spoken often recently and about which we have some new numbers today. The first number, that is 213,000. That's how many people filed first-time claims for unemployment benefits last week, a not small jump of 22,000 from the week earlier. The next number is 6.5 million. That is the number of job openings across this economy in December. That's from the latest Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey. The fewest openings since back in September of 2020. Marketplace's Daniel Ackerman is on the labor market beat for us today.
Here's one concern that Mark Hamrick, an economist at Bankrate, has about those 6.5 million job openings.
That's substantially below the total number of unemployed persons that were reported by the Labor Department in the most recent employment report.
Hamrick says it's the reverse of a few years ago, when there were 2 job openings for every unemployed worker.
So we are seeing, I think, now a bit of a misalignment between the supply and demand of and for labor.
And some sectors seem to be misaligning faster than others, says Tuan Nguyen, an economist at RSM.
There was more labor demand for goods-producing sector and less for services sector.
Less demand for professional and business services, for example, which had over 250,000 fewer job openings in December compared to the month before. Nguyen says the growth of artificial intelligence could be one explanation.
If you look at the broader market, this might be one of the biggest issues that we are experiencing. The fear of AI eating into profit margins and market share of tech companies that are behind on AI adoption.
Some of those companies might be racing to deploy AI rather than bringing on new workers. Pavlina Cherneva, a professor of economics at Bard College, says it's too early to tell how much AI is really to blame here, but the hiring slowdown is starting to take its toll on some groups.
The labor market is a very challenging place for young people, for young workers. Their unemployment rates are approaching double digits.
Unemployment for Black workers is rising too.
So when you add all of this up together, The conclusion is that the labor market is just not creating enough jobs.
And she says the problem doesn't seem to be improving. The number of workers unemployed for half a year or longer has nearly doubled in the past 3 years. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
Wall Street today, as I said, traders did not much like what they were seeing. We will have the details when we do the numbers. The Marketplace acronym of the day is SLOOS. SLOOS. Much as I would like to be able to claim it for ourselves, we cannot. It comes to us from the Federal Reserve, which once a quarter does a survey of loan officers across the country, senior loan officers to be precise, seeking their opinions on how things are going. Let's see if you can put two and two together here. It is the Senior Loan Officers Opinion Survey, SLOOS. Anyway, the Fed wants to know what kind of loan demand they are seeing, what their lending standards are, that kind of thing. The most recent version came out this week, covering Q4 of last year. And this time around, the central bank asked some questions, trying to get a better understanding of how those loan officers are feeling about lending to companies that are exposed to artificial intelligence. Marketplace's Justin Ho made some calls to find out for himself.
When you ask a lender how they decide whether to make a loan, they'll often bring up the 5 C's of lending.
Character, capacity to repay, capital or financial resources, collateral, and conditions. We're looking at how the loan will be used and external factors like interest rates and trends in the industry.
That's Robert James II, CEO of Carver Financial Corporation, which owns banks in Alabama and Georgia. He says the most important C on that list is character, as in a borrower's credit history. But another big one is capacity, whether a borrower will be able to repay a loan today and in the future.
And that's where the presence of AI, the threat of AI, or perhaps the opportunity presented by AI starts to impact a business model.
Lenders are concerned about whether AI is going to disrupt a borrower's entire industry. David Schiff with FTI Consulting says a bank might think twice about lending to a company that provides services that AI can provide.
There's a threat where customers could substitute and or put pricing pressure on them.
On the other hand, Schiff says AI could make some borrowers more attractive to lenders. A company that can use AI tools might be able to cut costs and pay off its debt more easily.
Where there is a lot of underlying expense tied to easily repeatable, digitizable tasks, a lot of banks are looking at that as a cost-save opportunity.
Schiff says it can be challenging to figure out whether AI poses an opportunity or a threat.
And it's something that the banks are having to look at and make judgment calls on. And at the end of the day, they're making bets.
In some cases, banks are betting that their clients won't be affected.
It's a non-factor for my customers.
That's Brad Bolton, CEO of Community Spirit Bank in Red Bay, Alabama. He says his customers include contractors, timber harvesters, farmers, and truckers.
I just don't see that my customer that's hauling dog food or hauling paper out of a paper mill, that's a trucker, their lives are not going to be changed by AI.
At least, he says, not within the next 5 or so years. I'm Justin Ho for Marketplace.
Data from the Federal Communications Commission tells us that in the year 2000, there were more than 2 million payphones distributed across this economy. By 2016, we were down to 100,000, after which the FCC stopped even keeping count. But just because traditional payphones have been disappearing doesn't mean the need for some kind of public telephone access has disappeared too. The good people at Pew Research tell us that 98% of Americans own a cell phone, which tracks, right? But it also means that 2% don't. Eric Kunzman is a photography professor at Rochester Institute of Technology. He is also the leader of the Good Phone Project. Professor Kunzman, good to have you on, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about the Good Phone Project, would you? What does it do? What do you guys do?
So the Good Phone Project is we're upcycling payphones that we've acquired over the years, and we're providing free phone calls for people, up to 20 minutes free unless it's social services. We really looked at the Rochester demographic, and that's where we're providing those calls. Frontier Communications has ripped out all their payphones nationwide, but especially here in Rochester.
Who are your clientele? Who's using these phones?
Right now, where we primarily place them we call them partners, because it's whether it's a homeless shelter, advocacy centers, our county libraries have reached out because they were having so many people using their front desk phones.
Oh, yeah.
That, we need to get people away from the front desk. It's not private. Sometimes it's a distraction. We're really partnering with just different groups because they pretty much provide the electric and the internet, because the phones are actually all voice over IP. And that's where we're converting them, and that's how we can make them free.
Gotcha. This whole project, though, the infrastructure such as it is not free, right? There are some carrying costs for you and the group.
Yeah, we basically are acquiring payphones, and believe it or not, the cost has gone up by about $120 over the past year. Because
really?
Apparently,
like for old payphones?
Yeah, they went from $250 to about $370 because people are apparently installing them in their homes now. They're becoming a fad. So.
Wow.
But then we have a monthly fee that we're paying for the voice over IP service. We have voicemail service that people can set up voicemail boxes. That way, if they're applying for a job or they give their extension to their loved one, they can retrieve that across the entire network also.
Right. So it's a social services thing. With all respect, I ask this question. You are a photographer. What do you know about running a social services agency?
I don't. That's why we're a lot of... Really, what the reason why this happened was, as you said, I'm a photographer. I teach photography at RIT and printing. I own a business, and we were in the neighborhood of the arts in Rochester, New York previously. And when I relocated to the Hosanna neighborhood by our minor league baseball stadium, a lot of people, there was a knee-jerk reaction, like, why would you move there? It's scary there. It's a war zone. But that's where I got to know, the families that live there. And it's not crime. If you look at the previous census data when I moved in 2017, it's really about poverty. So then I started photographing the payphones. At first, just trying to figure out why were people labeling this area. And then I was taught a lesson that people were still using the phones in 2018.
Yeah.
So that's where once I heard Frontier was going to rip them out nationwide, I was like, I teach at engineering school. There has to be a way we can do this. And I have team members. The 5 of us are kind of a hodgepodge group, and we're just trying to do good for the community at this time.
In an ideal world, your project gets taken over by a social services group that actually has infrastructure and staff and funding, right? That's the future, I imagine, that you're hoping for.
That, or even whether it can be county or city government, because if I'm still doing this in 5 years, I believe we failed because the average phone is being used 400 times a month. And so with that in mind, we're hoping somebody will take it over. Right now, we're completely grant-based or donations at this point. And we've had, since our last ribbon cutting, we've getting a lot of inquiries from the Buffalo, New York public libraries. People from all over the country say, how do we get this in our community? It's like, we're trying to lay out, like, here's the a la carte. This is what it costs to buy a phone. These are the people you need, and so forth.
Well, here's hoping that they hear this program. Eric Kunzman is a photography professor in Rochester, New York, also, and more to the point, the founder and project lead at the Good Phone Project. Mr. Kunzman, thanks for your time, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up.
The poles and the wires in the system are old, and we haven't had to build new power in this country for a long time.
Well, that's not great. First, though, let's do the numbers. Dow Industrials gave up 592 points today, 1 2/10%, 48,908. The NASDAQ down 363, 1 6/10%, 22,540. The S&P 500 down 84 points, 1 2/10%, 6798. Yes, of course, the Wawas. Come on, man. Tech stocks contributed to the drop today. Amazon closed down 4.4% just before an earnings report after the bell, which sent it down even more in after-hours trading. Alphabet, parent of Google, slipped about 0.5%. Cell phone chip maker Qualcomm down 8.5% on the day. Bond prices went up. The yield on the 10-year T-note thus fell down to 4.19% on the 10-year. You are listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Odoo.com, your entire business on one platform. Marketplace is supported by Wealth Enhancement, providing its Wealth Blueprint, a plan that integrates retirement, investing, taxes, and estate planning into one plan. Learn more at wealthenhancement.com/blueprint. And by JLL, a commercial real estate firm using data and AI to transform how clients find, manage, and invest in properties around the world. JLL.com. JLL, see a brighter way. And by The Economist, providing reporting and analysis on global politics, economics, science, and culture, covering international trends and emerging issues shaping the world today. More information at economist.com.
Some Democrats favor a campaign slogan this year: abolish ICE.
Abolishing ICE is certainly going to be the one that is really galvanizing a lot of folks.
Polls do show disapproval of immigration agents, but would abolish ICE as a slogan work any better than defund the police? On the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Weekday mornings on WNYC.
WNYC is supported by Shepherd, a global law firm with over 1,200 lawyers advising on business disputes, transactions, financings, and regulatory issues while building relationships based on trust and collaboration. Online at shepherd.com.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, President Trump recently signed an executive order targeting large institutional investors that buy up homes. But in some circumstances, those large investors have led to more housing affordability. We're going to have that story and more at 7. Stay with us.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Risdall. Dan Ackerman started us off today with labor market data, job openings, and first-time claims for unemployment, specifically where the news was, as you remember, because it was like 10 minutes ago. Meh, honestly. If you pull back just a bit, though, it doesn't get too terribly much better. We're not getting the January unemployment report till next Wednesday versus tomorrow. Thank you, most recent government shutdown. But what we know so far is not real encouraging. The private sector payroll data we got yesterday from ADP was underwhelming, just 22,000 new jobs in January. The unemployment rate does remain a bright spot, trending up, but still just 4.4% last we heard. As happens with data, though, the headline simply isn't the whole story. There have been, in fact, upward spikes in unemployment for specific groups. Black unemployment in particular is up nearly 1.5 percentage points in the past year to 7.5% right now. Black women's unemployment is up by nearly 2 full percentage points. And as Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman reports, that is going to have some lasting after effects.
Shernice Mundell is 48, a homeowner and mother of 3 adult children, 2 of them living with her in Maryland. A year and a half ago, she started a job as a member of the American Federation of Government Employees at the Federal Office of Personnel Management, working on health insurance contracts. She was still a probationary federal worker in January 2025, right after the inauguration, when
we started getting emails, asking us if we wanted to take deferred resignation. I said I wasn't going to take it. I was just going to, ride it out.
It was a short ride. In mid-February, her job was eliminated, she was told in a pre-recorded video. Without income, she struggled financially. She went on food stamps. And the job search?
Oh, it was really hard. I would apply for like 4 jobs every few days. I would get an email occasionally saying that I met the qualifications. They would put my application on file.
Mundell's bout of unemployment makes her part of a trend, says Valerie Wilson at the Economic Policy Institute.
Over the course of the last year, there was clear deterioration in the labor market for Black workers.
Historically, Black unemployment runs about double the rate of white unemployment. But in the last year, as the economy has slowed, white unemployment has barely budged, while Black unemployment has soared by an additional 1.4 percentage points. One development in particular has driven that increase, says Benga Ajilori at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities: sharp cuts to federal employment.
This time last year, we had the Department of Governmental Efficiency, or DOGE, basically taking a chainsaw to the federal workforce. Historically, the place Black households have been able to find good jobs, well-paying jobs with pension benefits.
Back in 2024, Black workers made up 18.5% of federal workers versus about 13% of the U.S. workforce as a whole. So Ajilori says Black workers have lost jobs disproportionately in the DOGE cuts. And Black women were overrepresented in some of the agencies that suffered the deepest cuts, like the Departments of Education and Health and Human Services. Another big drag on Black women's employment has come from the backlash against diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, says EPI's Valerie Wilson.
Corporations, the federal government, eliminating DEI positions and offices more likely to employ Black women.
Another group of workers worries economist William Rogers at the St. Louis Fed.
Whenever the economy slows down, young African Americans, 18 to 24 years of age, no more than 10 years of experience, no more than a high school degree, their employment prospects start to wane.
When the job market peaked in mid-2023 and demand for workers was highest, this group had an unemployment rate below 15%. Now it's nearly 22%. The rise in Black unemployment will cause long-term economic damage, says Tulane University economist Gary Hoover.
If you're unemployed, then that's going to affect your income, investing, and savings ability.
Hoover says more Black families will have to dip into emergency savings. They'll miss out on pension and IRA contributions, leading to lower household wealth accumulation. After her layoff from the federal government, being without a paycheck certainly dealt Maryland resident Shernice Mundell a financial blow. She was delayed getting on unemployment, and after 8 months of mostly fruitless job searching, she finally landed a position doing insurance authorizations at a big regional hospital.
The pay is a little slightly less than I was making with the federal government, but it does pay my bills and I enjoy it. So it worked out.
She says she misses her job with the government, serving the public, but for now, she's just happy to be working again. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
You've heard, perhaps, that the most recent nuclear weapons agreement between Russia and the United States has lapsed. Today is the last day, actually. It's the New START Treaty by name, and chatter now is of a new nuclear arms race. And look, nuclear weapons are nothing to turn a blind eye to, obviously. But nukes ain't the only race in town. China and the United States are in a race of their own, each trying to dominate in cutting-edge technologies. Robotics and AI, quantum computing. Also, though, the energy to power all of those things. And given that you can't do any of them without being able to plug them in, as it were, the stakes of the energy race might well be the most important. Marketplace's Sabri Benishore has more on that one.
China's energy buildup is
staggering.
Jason Bordoff is director of the Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia.
They built more power generation capacity in the last 4 years than the entire U.S. grid combined.
In just the last year alone, China added the equivalent of 40% of the electrical capacity of the entire United States.
China's projected to double its wind capacity, probably triple its solar capacity, and 6x its battery capacity by 2030.
Leslie Abrahams is a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. One cluster of solar farms in western China, the Talatán Solar Park, covers 162 square miles of desert. That is 7 times the size of Manhattan. One solar park. And China's lead is not just in renewables.
They also are the top investors in other technologies like large-scale nuclear. So they have almost 30 reactors currently under construction, which is about 50% of all global development.
If energy is a race, the U.S. is losing it. Kyle Chan is a fellow at the Brookings Institution.
The U.S. struggles to build out new energy, and it's not a problem that the U.S. has really dealt with before, given that there wasn't really that much growth in energy demand until now with AI.
Whereas China has been adding energy for many years to power its manufacturing base, in the U.S., decades of demand stagnation and underinvestment have made it hard to adjust. Columbia's Jason Bordoff.
We lost muscle memory with how to build new power generation. The poles and the wires in the system are old, and we haven't had to build new power in this country for a long time. It's difficult to get permits. There are all sorts of bottlenecks.
Areas where the U.S. was surging, like renewables, have run into roadblocks. The White House is trying to jumpstart nuclear power, but it's also trying to end offshore wind. Tariffs are making solar panels more expensive. High interest rates have dragged down financing. CSIS's Leslie Abrahams.
Our renewable growth will be about half of what we had previously thought it was going to be.
And it's not just renewables. Natural gas prices are rising, albeit from very low levels. And there are major problems in the U.S. right now turning more gas into more power.
There has been a shortage of the turbines that you need for those natural gas plants.
Kelly Morgan is research director for data centers at S&P Global. She says it has gotten so bad that AI companies are literally scouring the world for parts to build their own natural gas power plants.
They're looking at airline engines. They're looking at train engines. They're looking at used engines.
AI companies in particular have a lot to lose or gain from the fate of the U.S. energy grid. Columbia's Jason Bordoff.
The biggest risk that the U.S. might not win the race for leadership in AI is sufficient access to power at low cost.
And here is where the energy race with China becomes an everything race. Because energy is not just for AI. It is for cars. It is for humanoid robots and industrial automation. It is for AC on days that keep getting hotter. Brookings' Kyle Chan.
It's not just a matter of missing out on an energy opportunity, but potentially missing out on a broader technology opportunity.
All that said, electrical grid operators in the U.S. are trying. Drew Maloney is CEO of the Edison Electric Institute, which represents electrical companies.
We're investing more than $1 trillion over the next 5 years in order to build that energy infrastructure and meet that growing demand.
The big question is, will all of that be enough? In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore for Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Viking, dedicated to bringing travelers closer to the destination. Viking offers a small ship experience with no children and no casinos. Discover more at Viking.com. And by GEP, at the forefront of agentic procurement orchestration and autonomous supply chains. With GEP Smart Software, GEP Key Agentic AI, and Strategy Consulting, GEP works to help business optimize value and reduce risk.
This final note on the way out today, in which the operative phrase is disorderly decline. It's most often used in association with the dollar, as in the dollar going down for reasons everybody understands is fine-ish, but when nobody can figure out what's going on and it falls a lot quickly, that is a disorderly decline. The subject at hand today is not the dollar, but Bitcoin, which, while yes, still an almost entirely speculative asset, is nonetheless a sizable asset class. Well, what we have this week in the OG cryptocurrency is a classic disorderly decline. BTC against the dollar off as much as 14% today, 25% for the week, 31% the past 30 days, $63,000 and change per Bitcoin at one point on this day. Our daily production team includes Olivia Burdett, Andy Corbin, Maria Hollenhorst, Sarah Leeson, Sean McHenry, Michaela Sia, and Sophia Terenzio. Will Story is the supervising senior producer. I'm Kai Risdall. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. This is APM.
WNYC support comes from AEG Presents.